Welcome, welcome, welcome all. Good to have y'all. As we get situated, situated, depending if you drank your coffee or not. So glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, I see Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller, welcome. Hopefully you're able to co-moderate with me, and we have people joining in. The waiting room is buzzing, so we are very, very excited about that. Welcome all from wherever it is. Be sure to drop a hello, even though I'll be the only one that sees it. That's okay. I can give y'all a shout out. This can be your moment of fame when I shout you out. So let us go ahead and get right started because we have approximately 65 minutes, and I am so excited about this session. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Washera. You can call me Dr. E. I am an assistant professor in public health right here at Texas A&M University. Commerce is the best place to be. Excited to be serving as your moderator for this breakout session on student voices. And we will be hearing from these voices. So I'll do an introduction and then I will stop talking so the students can speak. Today, our student panelists will share their encounters with systemic racism and the impact this has had on their lives. They will also share their perspectives on the possibility of a post-racial society in America and the role we and they can play in creating a more anti-racist society. So jumping right in, I'm going to introduce our 6 panelists, and they are just diverse, they're beautiful, they're handsome, y'all can see them there. Just panelists, just wave so people can figure out who's a panelist before I call ya. But let me start out with Leslie. Leslie joined Tamu-C in 2016, where she obtained her bachelor's in criminal justice and is currently on her final semester to obtaining a master's in applied criminology. Once on this campus, she realized students are left feeling unheard and unaware of the many resources available to them. So what did she do? She didn't tell somebody about it. She became involved in changing that around and started working with student government, where her passion for advocacy blossomed. As an SGA president, she made it her mission to ensure all students are fully leveled up and informed about the campus resources and encouraging everybody to be involved and develop knowledge and skills to help them succeed once graduated. Leslie, go ahead and just do a queenly wave for us so we can know you're there. Thank you, thank you. And we also have Carlos Hernandez. He is a graduate student here at Tamu-C, and everybody's graduating. He's in his final semester in social work. He received a bachelor's right here as well in social work in 2019. Carlos, my friends, is a former U.S. Navy submariner and recruiter. Yes, he was the one that came to our high schools and told us about the good stuff, what we can do, how we can make an impact. You see our panelists, they're fabulous. After that, he transitioned to work in healthcare profession as a marketer for over 8 years before deciding to go back into social work. These experiences together provided him advantageous opportunity and experiences when working with people in diverse communities and areas. And we all know social workers, they know the ins and outs of every crook and cranny of everything. So Carlos, we're glad to have you. So just go ahead and give a very bossly wave. Thank you, thank you. We also have Kelvin Hayes. Again, all these people are graduating. He's a senior right here at Tamu-C. He is part of the Regents COLA program and a finance major, graduating this December with an MBA. He is part of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, where he has served in various leadership roles. He served as parliamentarian and historian for the fraternity, along with 6 other organizations. Now, it's all not just all hard work. He also plays. In his personal time, he shoots those videos and aspirations of one day becoming a movie director. So, Kelvin, just go ahead and give us a wave there. Thank you so much. We also have Tyler. Tyler is a senior in marketing at Tamusi, and he's the treasurer of the NAACP Unit 6809. He's also a member of Omega Psi Fraternity Incorporated Chapter, Theta Theta, and serves as the Surgeon of Arms of the National Panhellenic Council. Tyler, go ahead and wave at us so we know who you are. Thank you. We have Martha. She is born in Loma Linda, California, and raised in Fontana, California. But then she decided to come to the great state of Texas in 2008. We are so glad you saw the light, Martha. Welcome. And guys, we have a musician in the house. I don't know if she's going to, bust out with I don't know, she's going to sing, but we'll see. I don't know. She was part of the Richland Jazz Singers and attended numerous competitions in New Orleans, Seattle, Oklahoma, Texas. And she won Best Vocals within her division. So the girl can sing, okay? Not sing, she can sing. And she's also performed on stage with Josh Groban right here in Dallas. Martha will be graduating with a Bachelor's of Science in Liberal Studies. She is passionate about advocacy. Her time here has seen her active and plugged in as an advocate. Through SGA, she advocated for residential living conditions. So we are so glad because we know we need a voice, right? And was a senator for Campus Life. She has been a senator for academic affairs and just enjoys being an advocate and speaker for Tamusi. And Martha plans to continue this advocacy, working in mental health awareness in music and school through her graduate degree studies. Madam, how about you just wait for us? We may call you on to sing if we start, losing track. Last but certainly not least, we have Siobhan. She's a proud native of San Francisco, California. She's a Baylor University alum and president of the Texas NAACP State Conference Youth and College Division. She has been a member of NAACP since 2016 and previously served as a president at Baylor University chapter from 2018 to 2020. Shayla believes that there is power in purpose and strives to enable growth through positive change, advocating for justice to propel the impressive to be impactful. And she considers herself in the early stages of activism and hopes to be a catalyst for other young activists such as yourself. Wow. Give her, just give some claps for all our panelists. Guys, we just have a lot in store. And panelists, thank you so much for availing yourself. And to you, our viewers, from wherever you're tuning in from, welcome. And during this session, if you have any questions, just type them there as our panelists are talking. If you want Martha to answer that question, or Siobhan or Kelvin, just go ahead and write their name. And after they speak, we will have a Q&A. So we are ready to dive right in and allow our panelists about 15 minutes to share their experiences with systemic racism. And again, any questions you have, just type them in the chat box and we will be sure to see them. So allow me to start with you, Kelvin. And after that, we will go to Martha to share your input. Kelvin, welcome. Oh. Let me unmute you. Oh gosh. Sorry, guys. All right. It should be asking you to unmute yourself, maybe. There we go.
Good? Does it work? Okay. All right. How y'all doing today? Can you ask the question one more time? I'm sorry. That kind of made my brain a little slow right there. All right. So what's the session I had one more time? I'm so sorry. The mute thing threw me off.
So you were just sharing about your experiences with systemic racism and the impact this has had for you.
Okay. I will fairly say I am blessed to not come into contact with a lot of systemic racism, but I will feel that in my jobs that I've had in life that I've come in contact with it a few times. I will say some examples of that have been I say the way I treat customers when I'm in a working place. I'm very nice. I'm very respectful with people. But I have seen as a Black man that if I'm not you know, just doing everything that a customer says, they might take a little offense to that. I know one time somebody said I was being indifferent towards the customers, which came as a shock to me because, like I said, I'm the nicest person I know. So how could I be indifferent towards somebody? But it was really coming from a standpoint of, this black boy is not doing what I say, or he's not smiling like I want him to, or he's not, doing the things that I need him to that make me feel like I'm getting the help that I need. So I will say that I have come into with those issues before. As far as just face-to-face racism, I don't feel like I've ever, anybody's ever called me like the N-word to my face. But I do feel that though that people can be passively racist. I have dealt with some passively racist people, so they might not call me an N-word to my face, but I'll say hello, and then and they'll go talk to their friends, did you see Kelvin earlier? Or I don't know, I thought he was a little bit too loud. The little comments, or people come up to me and say, oh, you're very articulate. Words. Like, it's a surprise that a black man can be articulate in this world. So it's just little things, little backhanded comments, or things that are not said at all that come off as racist. So I feel like we live in a world now where blatant racism probably isn't at its height as it was back then, but I feel like people have more moved into that passive racism where, like, I ain't gonna show you that I'm racist, but I'll do actions that will show it. So that's the thing I've come in contact with.
Okay. Thank you so much. Martha, invite you to share as well.
Hey everyone, I want to just say thank you for giving me a platform to speak on. I guess I've dealt with racism in a lot of different ways, but in the sense of when it comes to my family members, I mean, I've seen my sisters discriminated. I mean, I am Nicaraguense and Panamanian, just to put that out there. So I am Latina, but a lot of the times whenever I am speaking Spanish, I get the whole, wow, for a white girl, you speak really good Spanish. And sometimes I'm like, oh, thanks. And I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or if I should feel weird about it. Because a lot of the times I always feel that I have to compensate and be like, okay, I need to be more Latina and let them know that I'm not white. But what's wrong about being white or Latina? Like, it's always felt like there's this tension, right? And I do acknowledge the fact that I do have white privilege because I've seen my sisters discriminated against in a way. I guess an example, we were at a Charming Charlie's and I walk in and the lady was super nice to me. Hi, welcome, Martha. Like, how are you? Like, what can I show you? And then, of course, I was with my sisters. They kind of trailed off. But instead of the lady being nice to my sisters, she followed them around the store as if they were thieves, criminals. And it wasn't until, the lady came up to me again and asked, like, hey, so is there anything you need? I said, no, I'm just here with my two sisters over there. And the way she looked and her eyes grew, it's kind of like she caught herself doing, racism and discrimination. And I just thought at that moment, I go, wow, I feel the pain, and it's painful to see your family members going through that. And at the same time, I'm not Latina enough because of the color of my skin. So then I always, try to educate myself and use the privilege that I have to bring awareness and to, I guess, have people on the outside world look in the lens of openness instead of ignorance. And I think it's important that even as a Latina, and if you are Latina and have white skin, to acknowledge that you do have white privilege in some ways, that you don't have to worry about being stopped by a cop, because that's not something you have to worry about. Whereas my friends of color are always worried about that, like, am I going to be safe in this situation? And with what's happening in the world, I think it's best to lift up the colored glasses that we have on and to really see it for what it is. It's raw, it's not pleasant, but it is our reality. And I think once we really speak up about it and be very truthful, that's when I feel we will see change.
Thank you for that. Wow, I like that. Take off the colored glasses and acknowledge truth, right? And that is the first step. Before we can tackle a problem, we first need to be able to call out what that problem is. Thank you for that. Carlos, invite you to share your experiences.
Yeah, well, a little to go on what Martha said and what you just said, Dr. Eve, regarding acknowledging it. I think that's the first thing we got to do is acknowledge that there is a problem, or that there is a generation upon generation system that's been oppressing the marginalized people of color, Latinos, Chicanos, all kinds of groups. For me, I'm 41 years old, so I'm a little bit, probably a little older than a couple of the panelists, and I came back into school. But when I look back in my life and reflect on things of racism or things that, that affected me, sometimes I think I was just naive or just not aware of what it was when I was going through it as a young man, as a child, as a teenager. One situation to talk about, as early as my childhood would probably be about 4 years old. I'm first generation Mexican-American, born in the United States, high school graduate, college graduate now, and about to have my master's degree first graduate in my family. And so my parents, they came from Mexico here in the early 70s to Greenville, Texas. And so whenever I remember a situation when I was about 4 years old, I wasn't in school yet, but my older brother was in school. He was going to kindergarten, and my mother went to take him early that morning. Well, sometime, during that mid-morning day, immigration came to my house, because they'd already got my father from at work. And that's where they got him. And so they came back to the home, because normally that's where the rest of the family, wherever they could potentially get. So they got, they were able to take him, but they left us, they were there. And I remember a conversation between the gentlemen thinking like, well, what do we do with these kids? There's no one here to leave them to, and so that always stuck with me. Like, it was just kind of one of those situations where it was just strange to see as a child, what was going on, especially with that situation. Well, they were able to get with communication with my mom. My mom was coming back from dropping my brother off at school, walking him to school. And so they were to get me to him. And so they pretty much were, because we were born in the United States, they didn't do anything to us, nor her. And so they kind of left it at that. Well, that kind of left a little bit of a resentment in me, thinking as I grew up, just thinking, man, why would they do this to families and things like that? And so as I grew older, I just had this, I guess a little chip on my shoulder, probably, I guess you can think of it. And so in my teenage years, I remember driving going to Dallas from Greenville, and as a young man, and I got pulled over, by a policeman. And so the policeman, whenever he asked for my driver license, in my driver license, I always carried my social security card. I carried a lot of my little documents in there, just because my parents would always be like, hey, make sure you carry these things, because people are going to always question you, question your status. And so I would always carry them with me. And I happened to get pulled over. The policeman did see that I had my social security card inside my wallet. He said, let me look at that. I said, sure. And I pulled it out and gave it to him. And he took a look at it. And he's like, where'd you buy this at? I said, what do you mean? I said, I got that from, my mom got that from the Social Security office. I was born in 1979. I started explaining to him. I had to explain to him that it was a 1979 issued Social Security card, that it was real, that it had nothing to do with being fake, or it wasn't manufactured or anything that way. And he just wouldn't believe me. And we went on this entire conversation. He's like, well, let me go run your driver license. I'll be back. And so finally he ran my driver license, ran everything. He found there was no issues with the record or anything like that. And I wasn't being, disrespectful in any way with him at all. I just maintained my calmness and just maintained, being cool with it, and just trying to, get out of a ticket. Really what I was trying to do. Yes, sir. No, sir. And finally he did come back, and he gave me my driver license back, and said, I'm going to issue a warning. But I had to then plead for my social security card back because he felt that it was still fake. He's like, this is something, it doesn't look real to me. He's like, I don't know what it is, and he didn't want to give it back. And I'm like, hey, I'm being totally honest with you. This is a 1979 issued social security card, And I think this was at the time when the cards weren't really, they didn't transition over to those new little emblems. And so it made it look suspicious to him. But at the same time, when you really look at what systemic oppression, racism does, and people grow up with these biases and these stereotypes, here's a young man, Hispanic, Chicano male, driving, this lowrider car to Dallas or coming from Dallas. And he just saw all these little signs and things that just went off in his head. Like, okay, this is this kind of guy that I'm looking for, and just was trying to put these things together, and it wasn't so. So I think acknowledging that there is a problem and trying to reflect on our own lives, on how we impact other people and the way we see things is important on trying to, hopefully find a better solution to the problem that's out there.
Okay. Wow. So Martha and Carlos give two really different takes, right, of experiences and interactions with others. And just want to call that out is that, sometimes we may think of racism and how it comes up as something very overt, very noticeable, but it could be just those underlying questions. Is that a real Social Security? Is that those questions that a follow-up, but if it was somebody else, they may not have been asked. So now let me ask Leslie. Leslie, jump on the stage here and just share some experiences that you have had with systemic racism. Oh.
There we go. So personally, I have not encountered racism directed at myself. However, I have been around and heard extremely degrading verbiage and microaggressions said in just a hateful manner, which does motivate me to speak up whenever I hear things like that. Everyone I'm around is aware that I don't accept this kind of rhetoric, and I do not associate myself with people who choose to live their lives degrading other races. Seeing the extensive amount of racism in our society, I'm angered and hurt for the individuals who receive such an amount of hate and negativity. I do and can seek to understand racism. However, there's no way for me to understand the extent of racism a person faces. But I do strive to do what I can and support students in any way that I can who have experienced racism. So as student body president, I created a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee for SGA just to ensure that all students are being heard and that work is being implemented by a diverse set of views and opinions. Also, after the murder of George Floyd, I sent out an email to the entire student body just reiterating that TMUC does not condone or accept acts of racism and that they will not tolerate or allow students to feel unheard. In my life, racism has influenced me to educate those around me who don't understand the impact that it has on our society and each person who does experience it.
Wow, awesome. Thank you for that. And I think Leslie really gives a challenge for all of us, whether you are the person experiencing or the person watching, is that we can create spaces where we don't tolerate certain rhetoric or certain things from happening. So I hope as we listen, we think about what can we do to change the space that we are in. Siobhan, we'll ask you to come on in and share with us your experiences as well.
Oh, wow, sorry. One of the first times I talked today, that was going to sound really bad. Good morning, everyone. So I think for me, there's a lot of instances, which is kind of sad to say. And so it can stem back to literally like elementary school. It can stem from things in college or just, random instances in society. So I'll just share a couple. The one that always kind of sticks to me, and I think why I'm invested in this work today, is one of the first experiences. And I was in elementary school actually, and it was the first time I realized like I was different. Like my parents raised me to be very like proud of my heritage. Like I'm Black, you cannot miss it. It's on my face. And so I remember I actually was in, oddly enough, a pretty multicultural elementary school, and a friend, well, at least I thought they were a friend, came up to me and was like, "You're ugly because you're Black." And I was like, "Whoa, what?" And so like 8-year-old me pretty much like went to the bench and started crying. 22-year-old me would do something a little different, but 8-year-old me definitely started crying. And so I was really sad. And so after that, I felt really out of place in a lot of areas. And so I'm born and raised in San Francisco, and so it's a very different place. And so kind of a big misconception is like, oh, well, you're from San Francisco, like they're very diverse. You probably don't experience, racism that often. And the fact is that's like the complete opposite. When you think about like the Black Panther Party, it wasn't started in the Bay Area for no reason. So kind of putting that into perspective. But even I think Kelvin said it earlier. I've definitely experienced the like, oh, you're very articulate, and I've experienced that at my university, specifically with administration. So definitely like a very large system. And so like kind of some of the introduction said, I was president of NAACP when I was at Baylor. I also was in a couple other areas. So I was chair of the Black Student Coalition. I worked in multicultural affairs. Also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So I was in a lot of spaces. I sat on the President University's Diversity Council, so I got to be in a lot of rooms, but I often was the only person. So when we talked about racism, it was like, oh, you're pulling the race card, or you're articulate. Thank you so much for coming with us, or thank you for representing the entire student body of Black people. And that just wasn't always the case. I can't speak for everybody. Also, it's really offensive just to tell someone like they're articulate. I go to this university and I was accepted to this university by your admissions counselor. So obviously there was something they liked that about me that's why I'm here. So even, when you think about instances in society, obviously like my father's a Black man, instances where, we're pulled over, you're in a nice car, people are, I can actually give you an example yesterday. My mom was actually getting a rental because someone hit her car. And so the rental she was getting was a BMW, and the guy was like, "Oh, it's a $31,000 car. You'll want insurance." And she's like, "I have full coverage. What are you talking about? I have insurance." And so even instances like that where it's microaggressions, and so they're constant, they're daily. I think you all have probably seen, especially in light of yesterday's grand jury announcement, like people are. I'm going to say people, but I don't want to like disrespect any other race or identifier. But Black women are the most disrespected person in society. And so even if it's not blatant, it's definitely something that I experience every day. When I put in my resume, especially for mine specifically, most of my extracurriculars say NAACP. The last 4 years of my life have been a lot of NAACP. I've been president, I've been treasurer, I've been social action chair. I've been in a lot of spaces, and I love NAACP if you can't tell. But it also has hindered a lot of spaces where I actually was working in a financial company last summer, and my boss actually was like, "Oh, Siobhan, I can't see you here." And I was like, "Well, that's funny because I'm actually the one contributing the most ideas on my entire team." We talked about diversity, and there was all women on my team. And I said, "Actually, we're talking about diversity. Technically, this team isn't diverse because there aren't any men here, and I'm the only Black woman." And so they kind of like pushed back and were like, "Oh, but there's a lot of opportunity here." I'm like, "That's great. I want there to be opportunity. I want there to be a space for women, but also realize you don't understand the definition of diversity then." And so even in that instance, as we were preparing, and you could get pretty much a full-time offer after college, I didn't get mine. And so it was just very interesting because everybody else on my team that was white did. And a lot of the issues that I raised were around diversity, around data, around ensuring that this was an equal and fair space. And the best thing that my employer could say was, "Well, we just see you as an elected official today." I'm like, "That's very commendable. I appreciate that. Maybe one day." But me raising issues of concern around diversity shouldn't equate to me not being able to fit into this space. And so I think there's different instances day in and day out of how, I could say that I think I've experienced systemic racism or just racism in general. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where I think we're at a standstill where it feels like, well, maybe one day we won't have to have this conversation anymore. But will I live to see that day? Who knows?
Wow, thank you for that. And now I want to bring in Tyler. Tyler, if you can share with us your experiences as well.
Okay. If you would have asked me this question years ago, I probably wouldn't have the answer. But now that I've like learned about systemic racism, it showed me a lot. So I would say it started back in elementary school. I'm from Denton, Texas, so it's very diverse. And I had white friends, and they were like, "Yeah, Tyler's really not black. You know, he's light. He's not black." I'm like, "Huh?" You know, I'm going home. My parents are both African American, so I'm like, "Okay." And then, you know, like both of my peers said, um, I'm good at articulating my words. So my white friends would be like, yeah, like, I think Tyler is one of us. He talks white, he acts this way, he does that. And I'm like, and it's just like really insulting now that I look back at it. And, you know, being black in America now, it's very painful because I can't walk into a store without all the clerks looking at me like, am I gonna steal something? Am I gonna do this? And about like 2 months ago, I was in Greenville. Now I just got a new car, and you know, this white guy asked me, "Hey man, that's a nice car. When is the lease up?" And I'm like, you know, it's just like things like that. And systemic racism is just very hurtful, and it can be very confusing as well because it can be very low key and it can be very like abrupt and very obvious. And one thing that's crazy about it is like if you crack an organic egg and you crack a regular egg, the same milk is going to come out. If I bleed and you bleed, we're both going to bleed red blood. And I'm very just honored to be in both the positions that I'm in. I've been treasurer for the NAACP for 2 years now. I'm a new member of Omega Psi Phi. And I think the only way we can end systemic racism is with the youth now, because this has been going on for years and years and years. You're not born to be racist. You get taught racism at the end of the day. So I feel like if we got the youth and show them that you don't see in color, I feel like we can put a Band-Aid on this, if not stop it, because as you see, it just won't stop. Police brutality won't stop. Injustice won't stop. And as we seen yesterday, it was very unfortunate that we couldn't get justice for Breonna Taylor. And, you know, it's 2020 and it feels like we're living in the 50s and 60s. And it's just been a hateful, hateful cycle. And I just want to stop it. I want to be somebody who stops it as long as with my peers. But like I said, it all starts with the youth.
Thank you for that. And that really segues us to our next topic here. So we've heard about experiences and want to piggyback what Tyler has said about it's not born, it's taught, right? So all of us grew up in whatever homes. We all ate from different kitchens here and there. And when we go out to society, we interact and meet with different people. One of the societies we're in is a school system. So I want us to discuss this, and I'll give each of you 90 seconds to answer on this, because we are all students. This is a student panel. And so in thinking about your actual education, the classes that you've taken, the curriculum that you're in, we have marketing, we have social work, criminology, we have everything else that you're in. How should academic courses prepare you, the student, to bring about social change rather than maintaining the status quo, right? So how can the courses that you are taking and the ones I am designing, how can those prepare you? And we will start with Siobhan and then go on to Martha for this one. Thank you.
You must have saw the eagerness on my face. So I think it's hard because there's a lot you can do and there's a lot you can't. So I know, again, I'm not a student at Commerce, nor have I been, so I have to use Baylor as an example. But I know for some of the shifts that were made, we use like cultural exchanges or cultural meetings. So you can sign your organization up as a cultural meeting, and then people have to go to, I think, 5 in a semester or something like that. So in my opinion, that's not enough. because that's almost like a show. I actually once wrote a letter to Baylor about like, we're not here for to be your performances. And so I think it has to be very strategic, and it needs to be ingrained into all curriculum. We need to be holistic about the stories that we're telling. When we're talking about history, we're not going to talk about slavery in an idealistic way, or we're not going to talk about it as if it wasn't kidnapping, as if it wasn't torture. So I think we have to be honest. And so this is something very simple that I would say, and that I've said in other spaces, is stop sugarcoating history, because it's not working for us. That's how we're getting where we are, where we think it's okay, where that's how microaggressions are coming about. Oh, it's just a joke. No, it's not a joke, because I don't think it's funny. A joke is supposed to be, you're supposed to laugh at it. So I think when it comes to curriculum, it needs to talk about, one, I think you should come out of college knowing the political system. I honestly think you should come out of high school knowing it. You should come out of high school knowing how to vote. You should come out of high school understanding what the political system looks like, what each branch of the government actually does, so that we're not having to reteach youth. We're not having to reteach adults who are eligible to vote, adults who are supposed to be contributors to society, if they're not, if they don't have the capacity and the knowledge in order to do so. So I think that's the biggest thing about curriculum that needs to change, where it needs to be applicable. We have all of these general ed and common courses that aren't teaching you how to be a common person in society, which is contributing to racism. And so there's just so much that isn't taught, so much that isn't being said, because we're trying to hit test standards, or because we're trying to make sure that our personal views are being contributed. So I think even for me, at a Christian university, we have a Christian heritage class or a Christian scriptures class. And so we have a lot of pastors that will put their own personal views into that classroom, but I need you to teach the curriculum as it is in the book. And I need you to teach the history as it actually has occurred, not what you think happened. And so I think that's where we're causing confusion for people, because we're putting our own spin on things, like say it how it is, and then we won't have enough issues. It's like kind of the common thing you say, like to your friends, like, be honest with me. And then you don't have to backtrack. You don't have to backpedal and say, well, actually, this is what happened. Tell me what happened the first time, and then we won't have to go back and say it again.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Martha? Oh, hold on one second. You're still muted.
Oh, unmute.
Yes, here we go.
Hi, yes, my bad. So I feel the way we can change a lot of things, especially when I was in the music department for quite a long time, especially when it came to learning different languages. Primarily, we mostly focused on just French, German, English, and Italian, but I never found a sense of, okay, but where's the music that has Spanish? And if I did find it, it was maybe like one or two songs, and it wasn't really sung. And I would always ask my voice teachers, like, why? And they go, well, it's not really popular. And I was just like, yeah, but why can't it be popular? Why can't we make that a thing in our curriculum? Why can't we learn Spanish diction? Why can't we learn, things that are very apparent to different cultures? I feel like, especially in the music world, at least from what I've experienced, most of my professors were white, and I didn't see a lot of diversity within faculty members. And I feel that, at least for the classroom, it would help and actually be very beneficial when you have people of different diversities, different cultures, because it even says within our liberal studies, interdisciplinary things, the way we branch and the way we learn is by experiencing different things, different cultures, learning different languages, and that makes you a well-rounded person, makes you more aware, and makes you more educated. It opens your eyes to all the different possibilities. And when you hinder students from experiencing that, you give them this point of just narrow-mindedness, and it's just a straight line when, oh, actually, I'm capable of many different things. I guess that's why I switched my degree. I was a vocal performance major, but I'm many things. I'm not just that. I love, you know, performing opera, but I also like singing old songs. I'm also good at working on cars. I've also pressure washed. I've also um, driven long hours. Like it goes into many different things. I'm not just this one thing. And I feel like when you give students the chance to branch out and to experience different things, and they need to be able to see that as well. I think I spoke before, we need to take off the lens of color. I also think we need to take off the lens that some of our history needs to be one certain way, because the other ways are too uncomfortable to talk about. That we don't want to talk about that because it wasn't as ugly as people make it, but it was ugly. That's the point. So we learn not to make or repeat the same mistakes. And because of the way the education system has gone now, we need to improve on that. And, I think that's why I'm committee chair right now for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have a senator named Sidney Drake who came up with a wonderful idea that we're going to do a let's talk to talk about the uncomfortable things, to bring officers in, to talk about things that we're uncomfortable about, because really that's the only way we'll have change. And I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So inclusivity and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and talk about what is difficult. Tyler, I will send that question to you as well. How can our academic courses prepare students for this social change?
I honestly feel like cleaning up shop on like the university or the campus, as in like anything named after somebody who participated in discrimination and racism. That's the first thing you can do, because as a fellow African American, if I see that on campus, I'm like, is this campus really for me? Am I really supported? And another thing, it goes back to the historians, back to what Siobhan said. I really didn't start actually learning about history until college. So back in high school, I was always taught history sugar-coated. I never really understood what true history was until I got to college, because it's just been sugar-coated and sugar-coated and sugar-coated. And this has went back to generations. And this, what brought out of this was ignorance, honestly. And I just feel like you can fix the curriculum. And then back with events, I'm on the social action board for my frat. So I feel like I'm not going to make you come out to the events. It should be whether you should want to or not. I just feel like students could be more open-minded when it comes to, seeing other sides of things. Just because you can always learn something and you're in school, so you should always just hold your academics very high, and you should want to be open-minded to learning new things.
Okay. Thank you for that. Kelvin, I'll invite you to also lend some words of wisdom for us on how academic courses can better prepare students.
Okay. Hello. Hi. So I am a finance major. So I guess racism in my field is a bit more interesting. But I will say, like, academic course wise, though, if I could just speak on academic courses in general, I will say that the history courses definitely be the courses that need to be attacked the most, though, when it comes to educating people on racism, educating people on history, educating people on why the things are the way they are. History definitely needs to be the main course that needs to be I guess just expounded upon. I feel like there is not only a lot of Black history that has been left out of American history. I feel like there's a lot of Native American history, a lot of Latino history. I feel like there's just a lot of history in general that has been written by the victors, and we all know that when history is written by the victors, there's not a lot of truth that comes out. So I feel like we've been preordained, predestined to learn what they've been teaching us for the past few years. So I feel like if we really want to move forward as a society, as this symposium is called, "The Truth Hurts," we need to start telling the truth in these history books. Like, why is everything as bad as it is right now? So I feel like once that type of knowledge is kind of spread to the children, it's not an overday thing, it's not an overnight thing, but I feel like once more and more people have proper knowledge as to why things work the way that they do, we can move forward as a country to be like, okay, this happened, we can move past it, we can learn. I mean, people change, people grow, people evolve. So, I mean, Germany knew that they had Nazis. Germany admitted that they had Nazis, and now they are moved on doing better as a society. So I feel like as Americans, like, we just need to go ahead and look in the mirror like, okay, we're racist. Let's accept it. Let's educate these kids on how not to be racist so we can move on to a better society. So I feel like with these academic courses, we need to, we need to figure out what we're putting out to the people, to the children. What type of information are they getting? What are they going home and telling their parents? Because it could be the wrong thing. So I feel like once we attack that spot there, we'll move better as a society.
Thank you. When history is written by victors, it is not always inclusive of truth. And I think that goes with the idea also of only you can tell your story authentically. So as Leslie and others have said, we need to have rhetoric that is representative of everybody in the room. Leslie, I will ask you to jump in and give us some input on how academic courses can assist with this social change.
Yeah, so in a criminological viewpoint, something that's heavily taught within my program is that of shaping social policy, and what you can do to improve and change past policies that have failed our society. And something I'm currently learning a lot about right now is how policing methods have failed our society. And like the previous people have mentioned, high school history is so sugar-coated that I didn't know how negative and how bad our society was until I got to college. And the second I got here and saw how bad it is for such a large number of people, that's one of the reasons why I chose to go down the criminal justice path, because I want to eventually become a criminal attorney and advocate and fight for people who don't have voices and people who are discriminated against. And it's just something that needs to be improved on, and more programs need to be taught, hey, this is what's happened, this is what's failed, here's what you can do to improve it and make it better.
Thank you for that. Carlos, if you can give us some input on this, thank you.
Yeah, like most of us have, been talking about and saying, I think a lot of it has to do with just what we're doing now, the discourse, talking about it, acknowledging that it exists, that there's a problem, that there's something, I think a lot of us can contribute so many things into, bringing that conversation, not only just into the panel here discussing it today, but, in the groups, in the communities that we go back into, the job, the employment that you're at. I mean, we can all try to make an impact in that way. I think, bringing these courses or having some type of courses in acknowledging, what the truth is, what the truth sounds like, just like that. And talking about that, acknowledging that it happened, being able to, reflect on those situations. And then from that, take actions, either, readjust and revamp the courses as it continues, as it grows, in the school. But I think most definitely, the main thing starting off is acknowledging it's a problem, talking about it, establishing a curriculum that can kind of help people navigate on how to reflect, properly on these injustices and these crimes against people, and find better ways on, moving forward.
Right. Thank you. So that has been really insightful on how academic courses should prepare. And I think all of us are saying that, one, they need to be accurate in the history, tell it like it is, do not sugarcoat it. And today, the title is What Truth Sounds Like, right? So here we're talking about what it sounds like, what it should look like, and what we should do with it. So coming from the classroom to apply it. Here at A&M Commerce, we have numerous courses such as these, a lot of them are global courses, right? In public health, we teach one called social justice in public health. That is open to any major, and these are courses that you as students, even us, can be aware of and understand, and then take this, as Martha said, to facilitate some let's talk sessions. Maybe if you've learned about Native Americans and some truth that you didn't realize, or African American history and slavery, rather than shy away from it, actually run to it, but then share that truth with other people authentically, in reflection of who the storyteller is. So again, thank you to all that have spoken. Yes, yes, let me bring back Siobhan. She would like to say something here. Siobhan, I'm
Sorry.
unmuting you. No,
Thank you,
you
Dr.
okay?
E. It just reminded me when you said that. So I think where we have to get to a point in curriculum is where we don't have to specify public health and social justice. We don't have to specify Black history, Latino history. Like, I think that's what we're kind of missing. Like, it should already be ingrained. When you say history and we're talking about US history, it needs to encompass everything. You shouldn't have to specify that this is this specific identifier in history. So even in my course curriculum, and we talk about, I think it was like, I took a class that was social work and social justice, intro to foundations of social justice. That should already be ingrained. So I think that's part of what's missing, and why we think everything has to be so, for lack of a better word, segregated in terms of the curriculum, where in February I learned about Black History Month. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. It's all year round. Black all year round. Somebody else is Asian all year round. Someone else is Native American, Latino. Like, those do not stop. And so I think the curriculum basically needs to reflect the society that we live in. And the actuality is that you are your identifiers every day of the week, every day of the year, every day of your life. And so when curriculum is able to be adapted to that, I think we'll get to a better place. Now, I think it is a great start that we do have these like intersectionality of courses for right now. But in order to progress and move forward, we have to be able to integrate all of those together where we don't have to specify.
Right. That's a very good point, right? So even within our curriculum, let us not segregate, and that's very true, because to be able to tackle this, and this segues us into now our last topic discussion, is how can we now take on those social justice roles as college students to respond to this racism pandemic and now social change, is that our curriculum needs to reflect, I love that, reflect the diversity of the society that they are teaching, right? But then it is also our responsibility as the learners to now go share that with others, so we do not create this channel of privilege where I only know this history because I was able to afford this class. So even for us, that's a good way to start taking that action into the everyday. So that leads us to our last discussion point, which is on what is our role, right? What is our role in the everyday? Our panelists have talked about the microaggressions and how this occur in every day. It is when they're going to rent that BMW, when they are driving to buy something, when they are stopped by that cop, when they are in class, when they're making a presentation and somebody says, "Oh, you're so articulate." These happen in the everyday, and this is where we live, we work, we play, we grow. So how can we as students, but society as a whole, what can we do to create an anti-racist society? So that is a question that I'm asking all our panelists. What action can we take to create an anti-racist society? And Carlos, allow me to start with you because you are so tuned into me right now. So I know you got something to say. Welcome, Carlos.
All right, so what can we do? Wow, this is honestly, I think a lot of it starts, as young as, I mean, a lot of, like I mentioned, when I got impacted for myself, and I've heard some of the panelists as well, was elementary. As soon as, the educational system even started, I think as one of the first things that we need to do, well, how can we do that? Well, I think, for us as college students, we also need to consider taking opportunities, maybe looking into substituting, going into the educational system, especially as diverse as we are, and bringing our experiences into that realm to help. And change that, help relabel people instead of them thinking and, being labeled by society on this is who you are, and let society dictate who a person is going to be, that we should empower them, so they can determine and dictate who they're going to be and what they're going to contribute and how they're going to contribute that, their life to society. I think that's one of the main things that helped me, is that I didn't allow the interactions that I faced and the people that I interacted with, their biases and stereotypes and the racism against me impact me in that way. I didn't just go say, you know what, I'm going to go be that guy that they think I am. I went ahead and decided to choose to be who I wanted to be. And I took opportunities and made decisions in my life to get me and make a better choice in my life. I was blessed enough to have people around me that supported me. Well, there's some people that don't have that. Well, we need to be able to do that for people. I know I'm aware of that, of that experience for myself. So how can I contribute to that? And that's something that, was one of my goals. I just recently, just did my application to a school district out here in Paris to be a substitute teacher. Yeah, I'm not a full-time teacher, but this could lead to something like that, and so I want to be able to give back and be able to make that difference, to make that change that, we need to start. And I think starting as young as we can get, elementary, or, not just elementary, but, any age group in the school district is an opportunity to be able to give back to the community in that way, and try to get a hold of it and change it.
Thank you for that. Leslie, I will bring you on to share how we can also take action. Let me unmute you there.
Thank you. So based off of what Carlos said, just starting as young as you possibly can, having the tough conversations, making everyone aware of how bad it is within our society, and that without us coming together and fighting for a change together, that nothing will ever happen. If we're divided, nothing will ever come out of it. It's something that every single person needs to be on board with. And like conversations have previously said, racism is taught. So we have to end that and just start as young as we possibly can and go from there. I know I personally will continue to fight to end racism as much as I possibly can. And like I mentioned earlier, once I do become an attorney, I'm going to use the privilege I was born with to fight for those who don't have that and who are discriminated against because of how they look. And that's how I will do it myself. And I know that everyone I come across, I will strive to educate them as much as I possibly can.
Thank you. So being a part of the solution, being part of the action, and finding how you can do that. Thank you for that. Martha, what about you?
I think it all starts off with educating yourself and knowing the right resources, especially with social media now. A lot of things can be misconstrued. And, sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions, especially with the movement that's happening right now, BLM. There's a lot of like, oh, it actually means this and not that, when actuality, you need to be doing your research and not, trying to diminish a movement just because it seems like it's not aligning with your views, because then you haven't really done your research. Education is important, and especially with instructors. Kids are very easily influenced. So if you do see, a child, because again, children's minds can be molded quite easily. If you see something they're doing that could be considered racist, say it in a nurturing way. Be like, no, that's not what you say. Their name is this. They're not this color. Because when I was a kid, I had an instance where I forgot my friend's name, I guess, and she made me upset. But instead of me calling her by her name, which I had forgotten, I go, that girl that's black. And then right away I had a teacher say, no, don't call her black, call her this. And I don't forget that experience, because that experience taught me that you need to educate yourself and be aware of your surroundings and the words you say, because the words you say can be venom and poisonous to somebody else. And because I advocate for diversity, because I advocate for mental health as well, mental health is important. Don't diminish somebody's feelings just because it may not align with your views. Educate yourself, because ignorance is not pretty.
Thank you. Thank you. Siobhan, I will bring you on for you to also share your input on what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot, and it just depends on the person. I have people all the time who ask me, like, what can I be doing to contribute? And there's a lot of debate around, I think Martha was saying, like, there's a lot of things on social media. I think between March, I'm saying March because that's kind of like quarantine, also kind of a Ahmaud Arbery timeline. Was a lot of when people started signing like a lot of petitions, putting a lot of things on social media. And so from there, I think some people just considered that like their contribution to activism. And what I say to that is, if that's someone's utmost capability of contributing, then that's great. I hope they continue to do that. But if you have the capacity to do more, whether it's putting together a protest, a demonstration, educating, I think educating is the one thing that everybody can do. If you see something wrong, if you hear a microaggression, if you see someone who is acting in a way that does contribute to racism, then you can say, hey, that's not okay. And understanding why that's not okay. Because I think the biggest discrepancy for a lot of people is that they don't understand why it's not okay. They've just been trained, they've been conditioned to do so. I think someone said earlier, racism is taught. So that's what they've been taught is right. When you're a kid, your parents tell you to come here, you do it because that's what you think you're supposed to do. So we have to unlearn a lot of things. It takes a while to unlearn something. And so you have to continue to teach someone and make sure that you have the ability to say, hey, it's not okay because it's hurtful, and it's hurtful because of this piece of history. It's hurtful because it's offensive. And so being able to say that, and I know it's also hard, especially for a lot of minority identifying people, because you probably have to do that a lot, and it gets really tiring. Like I think I probably said it like 5 times in the last 24 hours. Like I'm tired, but I'm going to continue to do it because that's my contribution. So whether it's running for office, whether I think it is especially important to do your research. So even a lot of people, I can give the example of yesterday with the grand jury indictment, that a lot of people didn't realize that result didn't have anything to do with Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor's initials were not red. That charge did not have anything to do with her whatsoever. It had to do with the endangerment of her neighbors and the bullets that did not hit her. And so doing research along those lines to understand where we are in society and where the impacts still need to be made. The justice system, there was no justice in that ruling yesterday. And so for some people, it's like, well, at least we got something. That something has nothing to do with Breonna Taylor's life. And so we have to ensure that people are educated. I think the first step to anything is education. But on top of that, what you can do is continually educating yourself, getting involved in whatever capacity you can, whether it's on social media through petitions and posts. But you need to go beyond that if you have the ability. Now, if you, for some reason, cannot do anything, go outside, don't talk to anybody, sure, do whatever you can. But you have to do as much as you can if you're actually committed. And it's not something you can just do the day you feel like it. So my biggest thing about, for instance, Black Lives Matter, the movement, not the organization, just to clarify, is that I have to live Black Lives Matter every day of my life. And some people can pick it up and say, oh, well, Black Lives Matter on Monday, Black Lives Matter on Tuesday, Wednesday. And you know what, today, Thursday, I'm tired. So I'm just gonna back away because it doesn't affect me. So you have to actually live that out in your daily life. And I commend people who do, and especially those who are allies. So you have to make that commitment, and you have to make that commitment every day. So I would say as a college student, you have to ensure that you have to fight for it, and you have to fight for it consistently. And it can't just be a one-time thing. It can't just be a Black post on Instagram. It has to be something you actually live in your daily life. something that is not just going to be a sometimes effort, but you also have to prepare for it through research, through putting yourself around people. So there's a quote actually from a podcast that my mom listens to, and I adapted it. And it basically was saying, like, in the podcast, it says, I can't be friends with anybody who doesn't have life insurance. I can't be friends with anybody who's not registered to vote. Because if you're not registered to vote, you're telling me you want to continue to enable this system. And this system is, at this point, I don't know if it's even intact. It's not broken. It's just not there. So you have to set those boundaries and be able to say, hey, this is what it looks like to be an active person fighting against this system. And you have to be doing your best to do so. So again, I think it can look different for everybody, but those are just some like different options. I think running for office is probably like the biggest one for me personally, because we have to have people in those spaces who are ready and willing to actually fight for those people in spaces where they can't. So that's why it's important to vote, because you need those people who are going to vouch for you even when you're not in that space. So a lot of different things, but I think there's a lot of things you can do. You just have to find yours, and it has to be the fullest capacity of what you can do.
Thank you, thank you. So our panelists thus far have said, learn, be educative, take opportunities, look for those, and then do something. Kelvin, will invite you to add on to that as well, on what we can do. Let me unmute you here. I don't know what, are you able to unmute yourself, Kelvin? Okay,
Yes.
there we go.
Okay. There we
We
go.
can hear you.
Okay. Well, hello. Good afternoon. Siobhan really said like a lot, so I'm probably gonna only have like a minute to put in. I feel like on a personal level, what we can do, when I say this to people who are educated on things such as politics, history, what's really going on, the best thing you can do on a personal level is to educate your friends. I feel like that will go a longer way than most people will realize. When you're just sitting around your face, y'all just having a group discussion, and somebody might, well, I'll give an example. For example, last week I made a tweet about Rudy Gay's RBG. Y'all know who she is. I made a tweet about her and her passing, but a lot of people who weren't aware that because she passed, President Trump is allowed to appoint another Supreme Court justice before he leaves office, which would prove, rather bad for people who don't want that to happen. But a lot of my friends weren't aware of that. They didn't know that once a Supreme Court justice passes, the current president gets to appoint another person. They didn't know that. So it's little stuff like that that will go a long way for people, just educating your friends on the necessary information, that just basic information that they need to know. Because it can be a thing where I educate that one person on, hey, this is what happens. They can go to somebody else and do the exact same thing. So, the false information spreads just like truthful information can spread. It just depends on how you spread it. So I feel like if we can ourselves educate our friends, if we know that our friends don't know even this or not, just tell them, let them know, educate them. They might not go home. And then once you tell them, like, okay, that's more information they want to go find out for themselves. So once they go find out that information for themselves, next time the conversation comes up or they come to somebody else, now they can educate that person. And that's kind of how the system starts. So I feel like personal education is probably the best thing we can do as young people to educate others. Voting has already been, mentioned. Register to vote, go vote. Obviously, you gotta need to vote. And then just educate yourself. So not only educate your friends, but educate yourself. I don't care how smart I think I am. I feel like there's always more knowledge that I can go out there and find. So I feel like so on that standpoint of educating your friends, be sure that you know what you're educating them on too. Don't spread ignorant information either. Don't, just tell your friends, oh, I feel like I'm being helped, so I'm going to tell them this. No, if it's not right, don't tell them that, because then they're going to go through their life with that false information. So before you educate your friends, educate yourself. Listen to podcasts, go to CNN, whatever you feel is comfortable to get that information that keeps you aware of what's going on in the world. Do that on a daily. That way you can help other people out. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Tyler, I will bring you on to give us some input here. There we go. You're good.
Okay. Honestly, Dr. Donna Ford kind of said something very interesting in the previous breakout session. I'm going to kind of revise that. I feel like we have to keep our dreams and aspirations and hopes alive just during hard times, because, back to the Breonna Taylor thing, you try to do all this and that, you try to fight for justice, and then it's not served. But we can't let that discourage us. We have to keep on going and keep on pushing. We have to keep on doing these marches. We have to keep on doing these events, because if we don't do it, it's gonna completely die. And when we see it, just stop it literally as soon as it happens. And you don't have to be rude about it unless it was kind of perceived rude. You can just simply redirect it and de-escalate any of the situations, and just always just educate somebody in any different way. You know, we have to appreciate others' culture, whether it's Latin American, African American, you know, Caucasian, any of that, so we can all get an understanding of each other. Because if we don't understand each other, then this is how systemic racism continues, and it just keeps on revolving and revolving. And then back to what I said earlier, it all starts with the youth. You know, we're getting old and everything, and it's going to keep on going. But if we start fresh, we can probably end it pretty soon. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We have about 10 minutes left. And before I ask our panelists to give their 35-second closing remarks, 35 seconds of just something we can put on a t-shirt about this, would want to open up the platform to anybody that has a burning question. Maybe you just didn't want to type it, you wanted us to hear it, to see you. If you're there, we have quite an extensive audience. So I see faculty, I see staff, I see students, I see everybody, I see names. So if anybody has a question that they would like, just click on that raise hand. We'll have enough time for maybe one or two. And for whoever the panelist is asked, ask you to keep that to under, a 60-second response. Anybody have a question, comment, praise report, testimony at this time? Come on, somebody. Anybody have something that they would like to ask, to say? I invite you to do that. I see Daryl Peace. You want me to unmute you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I do not have a question. More than anything, I just want to applaud the people the young people here for their comments. I've actually texted an instant message, most of them. If you've got a message to me, you're like, okay, that's who that guy is. I'm just excited about your insight. I am a baby boomer, and so we've taken this thing as far as maybe we can take it. And so we're depending on you to help make the change that needs to happen. So thank you so much for your participation and for what you are still going to do to make the world a better place.
Yes, thank you so much. Lucy, I see your hand up, so I will unmute you. I don't see you on my screen because there's quite a few people, but if you're there, I have hopefully unmuted you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'd like to commend the young people as well. A lot of good statements. At the same time, I do have almost lamenting some things because I'm a baby boomer too. And I really would like to hear more specifics about the problems with curriculum, the unjust laws, like what happened to Breonna Taylor. But unfortunately, a lot of things are not taught in the curriculum. I hope there's some outside studies. For example, Dr. King said if a law is unjust, then we don't have to honor that law. And I think we have to understand things like the situation with Breonna Taylor. The law was already about, they had the right under the law to do the no knock. But what Dr. King brought out was, it doesn't matter if it's law. We have to go to a higher court and we have to take a stand in a different way. because we can't win a lot of these cases when we're talking about just the law like that. And one other concern, I know we need to start with the youth, but at the same time, a lot of these laws are put into place by the powers that be, those who are in power now. And so you're saying for sure, let's go out and study. And I encourage you to do that and learn as much as you can in all subjects, politics and everything. I encourage those who are talking about going to law school, criminal law, and being active in it. It's wonderful, but there's certainly a lot of more studying. If we wait for just the children to change their mind, we'll lose so many people. We have to confront the strongholds. Those are the things Dr. King talked about too. We got strongholds. And by the time we get to the children, we've lost another generation or two. So I applaud you, and yet I encourage you to continue your study and look in places where you don't have a clue, because this was not just about enslavement, was an economic aggression against Africa, and that global aggression is still going on. And if you haven't looked into what's happening currently in the relationship with Europe and Africa and the whole world, there's a lot of work. We got to know where the race is and where we need to put our work. So keep studying, young people. Beautiful job.
Thank you, Lucy, for that and for that challenge to keep studying on there. Marta says, each of the panelists and all my students are my motivators, my inspiration, and my hope for a world of inclusion, equity, and peace. Kelvin, let me call you on the stage. I'm unmuting you to just, because you brought up about, have you educated your friends about, the passing of RBG and others. And so how could we rise up to this challenge that Lucy has given us to be aware not only of the local, the national, the global, and how all those come together. So let me invite you here, Kelvin. I'm muting you. I think I am. Okay.
Hello? Okay. So the question specifically is like how we can be aware of all the knowledge at once. Is that the question?
Yes, and then how we can now, because once we're aware of the global microaggressions and everything happening, how can we, how can we then use that to do something about it?
That's a great question. Oh
how
my.
would you do that?
Ooh, don't ask me. Okay. Well, I feel like on a global scale, once we recognize the problem, I mean, the best thing anybody would do is to get the leaders involved. But then the question is, if the leaders are not helping, what can you do yourself? So, as I said earlier, with educating your friends, the only reason why I even said that just as a way to spread information. But I feel like an effective way to just spread global information, just to get everybody involved. I feel like people all need to have like a common ground, when they want to like get things done. I feel like we as humans can be rather selfish, so it's always got to be some type of incentive to get something done. Now, I feel like on the stage of racism, you should want to get racism over with because it's racism, but everybody doesn't feel that way. So with that, I ain't trying to give no random answer, so let me gather my thoughts right quick.
I think that's a good one, is the challenge, and I think it's a challenge to all of us, right? I think somebody in the session said, I think it was you actually, and I just said think a lot, but said that there's always something to learn, right? There's always another perspective, and we should all try to be as comprehensive in our understanding, and as we do that, we then take action on that. So I'll help you along there on that one. Okay. So right now, what I want to do is we need to wrap up, like a transition to the closing session in the next 2 minutes. So panelists, I will invite you, and Kelvin will start with you to give a 10-second closing parting shots. 10 seconds. I know I've given you all 35. 10 seconds. of a parting shot for our viewers today? Could be a quote, it could be a song lyric.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna use my 10 seconds to quote Kendrick Lamar. We gonna be all right. All right.
Thank you. We're gonna be all right. All right, Carlos?
Mine would be we need to make a conscious effort to be present in our daily interactions with the people around us and the people we engage with.
Wow, awesome. Martha?
I guess a quote that I have from Marilyn Monroe is, I don't forgive people because I'm weak, but I forgive people because I'm strong enough to know that we make mistakes.
Wow. All right, Siobhan?
Okay, I'm gonna give y'all an original, and I think can be applied to a lot of situations, but it's a dream is only as good as the plan to achieve it. So make sure you have a plan, whether it's to educate your friends, whether it's to run for political office, whatever it is, whether it's to take down the system. Make sure you have a plan and that it doesn't just stay in your dream.
Thank you. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Tyler.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I had to go on Reddit real quick. All right, when life gives you 100 reasons to break down and cry, show life that you have a million reasons to smile and laugh. Stay strong.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists for this insightful and very great conversation on what truth sounds like, specifically from the words of you, the students, and for representing. I know we belong to a diverse group, so you don't represent all the students on campuses across the nation, but at least you showed up, and we thank you for doing that and for lending us your voice. To you, our viewers, I hope this was as insightful for you as it was for me. And I too, joining with Marta, I'm encouraged by just the excellence all our students are living, whether Black, white, whoever you represent. Thank you for that. And just want to give a few housekeeping. So you should have received an email from our Platform Q link to get you back up to the wrap-up session. And we greatly encourage you to tune in for that. And my parting shot, I mean, come on now, gotta give something here, right? It was gonna be a song, but I didn't do my me just right, so I'm not going to sing. But I will give this quote, and it says, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. It's for good men to do nothing. And this whole session, our students have shared about the action that they have taken in their everyday. You may not run for office, but wherever you are, in the spaces you walk, the spaces your feet touch, you have a platform, an opportunity, and hopefully a responsibility to call out wrong when you see it. Don't wait for the next day. As soon as you see it, call it out and be truthful about it. This whole day is what truth sounds like. So let us not sugarcoat. Let us not take the road that everybody takes, but take the road less traveled, which is to call out truth. And even as we do that, to take action, because we represent the good men and women in society, and the injustices and names such as Breonna Taylor and so many others that have gone on before us, and even some that we know today. The injustices that they face for one person is too many. One person's death is too many for our society. And as one of our panelists said, we all make up different types of eggs. We all have a yolk. If you break us in, if you cut us, we all bleed the same colors. So today I challenge us that humanity fight for humanity, regardless of who you are and regardless of who you are fighting for. So let us transition. If you did not receive a link, we will drop one, but we ask you maybe check your spam and see if that is there. But thank you so much, and good job to our panelists. Good job to everybody, and see you at the closing session. Thank you.